if the other four characters in the movie are parts of her personality, how do we define those? I mean, it seems like
So let's combine that and the
Shepard.
question of the fact that they're all women. Let's sort of combine those 2 points. Yeah,
Can I start it with one thing?
please
So
do.
in the book, the four characters that Natalie Portman and her cohorts in the book, there's four of them, and they are the 12th excursion or expedition that's gone into the Shimmer over the course of something like 30 years. I don't remember what the timeline is in the movie.
Not
but
long.
The Shimmer's, yeah, the
3
Shimmer
years.
in the book
3
is,
years. It's
okay.
3.
So the Shimmer in the book has been there for something like 30 years, and there's been 11 previous expeditions, and the one we're in on is the 12th. And I was listening to Joseph Campbell the other day, and he was saying that anytime you see the number 12, it's a solar journey, which means it's a journey of enlightenment. Like the 12 disciples, that's an enlightenment story. And so thinking about, well, does that work for this movie? And it seems to, because it's all about enlightenment and consciousness. So that's kind of, in the book,
Very
it was clear that it was 12. So I think that knowing what the movie is about too, it seems to reinforce that idea that we're talking about coming to a realization of yourself and self-actualization, as Jung would put it. Jung.
Seems like they would have. I'm bringing you over to my side, my pronunciation side. Hey, thank you. Welcome.
I think. Well,
You're one of those bastards who
Jung.
say data, don't you? Aren't you? You're one of those guys.
I'm a mixed bag.
Sorry, what were you going to say before I interrupted you?
Data. No. They.
That's upsetting.
Yeah. Well, we were going to get into the
Women.
why is it all women?
Why is it all
and
women?
kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Yeah. So that's where you were going to go. I just wanted to start it off with, okay, well, it's a
Well,
journey of enlightenment.
I wasn't going to go there. I was going to ask you what you made of that.
I don't know, other than in the movie, it seems like they make it a point that the first expeditions were more about power and military. And so maybe a masculine aspect, typically masculine aspect, whereas this one is all women and it's also all scientists. So maybe, so I don't know if that's just supposed to highlight the difference of this particular mission in contrast to the previous missions that have gone and kind of failed. So
yeah. I mean, it certainly. In the first 30 seconds of seeing the away team, thought, well, why, what? I mean, what is this? Some sort of political statement? And then I realized 30 seconds later, there is something else going on here. There's a deeper thread to pay attention to ask why it is. One reason might be, again, I know I've sort of mentioned it too many times, but that we could look on each character as a flawed part of herself that needs to be sloughed off, in a sense, in order to reach the lighthouse, in order to reach the center, in order to sort of clean the grime off of the bulb of the light, so that it can shine the way, more clearly and actually be of use, so that the compass points in the right direction. That these are sort of these things, these clingers on, these sort of sucker fish that need to be sort of scraped away before she gets to the main issue, right? And one is this suicidal girl, one is someone who's confronted loss, one is, all of these, they're very archetypal in their formulation. And so making them all women seems to sort of make it easier to see it that way. Whereas if it were women and men, then it would be kind of convoluted as a way of viewing it that way. And I mean, the more I watched the film, the more it was that way to me very clearly, to the point where by the time the bear showed up, I was, and it's not usually something that I do, watching the film completely symbolically. Usually I'm the other way. Usually I just watch a movie like a 2-year-old and say, "Oh, the bear," and the next thing happens, and I usually do that. But I think the way that the elements were keyed in at the right time sort of made me look at it as I was watching it through certain lenses. And meteor hits lighthouse. Pay attention. 5 women, each with a specific problem, goes into an obscuring layer of reality. Pay attention. It's sort of purposely, I think, slaps you over the head, not because it's trying to be obvious, but because it's trying to prepare you mentally with the right lenses, so by the time you get to this very strange ending, which is not so overt and obvious, you have the lenses ready to view it in some way that makes sense. Because if you're trying to watch the end of the film literally, then it's really stupid. Well, there's this sort of mica person who's a Muscovite mica person who's copying her movements, and then she catches on fire, and then the trees catch on fire, and then she's fine. It's so dumb.
And it's weird.
It's dumb if you watch it like that.
Sorry, I was gonna say their fight is kind of a dance. They kind of danced with each other. To me, it wasn't a rock'em sock'em, jabs and uppercuts kind of fight. So
it was.
It would look silly kind of if you don't have any preparation for. Okay, this is symbolic.
Right. I mean, I think it's almost dumb if it's not seen in that way. If you're not sort of adequately ready to see the end in that way, then the end is very stupid.
So did you try to parse out, or can you put a name to or describe? I'd like to try with you and see what you think. Like, okay, Anya, the paramedic, the one that picks up the 50 caliber machine gun, what part of Lena's personality is she? To me, I don't know. Do you want to do that? Does it?
Well, I that's a good project, but hopefully that's something that the book covers more, because I just don't think there's enough material to go on for that. You know what I mean? Like, I would want to say, in what argument that she had with her husband could I see that piece of her come out? Right?
Yeah.
And I was looking for that, and I was trying to see that, and then there's the grieving mother whose daughter died of leukemia. In what conversation that she had with someone else previously would that part come out? The only part I can see is that she's grieving for maybe her husband. But then again, I didn't see it as the way you saw it. I saw it more as this sort of if your parent called you and you didn't answer the phone. I don't want to say your parent. If a parent called their child and the child said, I don't want to answer right now, and then they got killed in a car accident, you say, oh my God, you would never be able to live with that. I could have answered the phone and had a last conversation, and I didn't, and that guilt would crush you. So I saw the whole thing as that conflict within her about, my husband is gone and I'm having sex with this guy, not realizing that she should be having sex with this guy because he's a nice guy. But that was something that, could have suggested the lady, I forget her name, Shepherd. It could have suggested the lady whose daughter died of leukemia as that part of herself who's grieving for someone who's gone.
Yeah, and so, and that might be perfect. So Shepherd is the grieving part of herself. Anya, the paramedic, the woman who picks up the 50 caliber machine gun, she's the military part of herself, the aggressive. Lena spent 7 years in the military, and then Radek, she would be the scientist part of herself because she's a biologist, and then the psychologist. I don't know maybe she's the part just trying to figure it all out. I don't know.
Maybe that's another one of the cues that we're supposed to pick out. I mean,
so in the book, this is it. So Ventress in the book as well, the psychologist, is kind of the ego part in a Freudian sense, the ego of the super ego that's telling her, do this, don't do that. Literally, the psychologist puts them under hypnosis. So when she says something, they have to do it. Like, I forgot one thing she says makes them calm in extenuating circumstances, so they keep their cool. And then I forgot to mention it, but when she says annihilate, if Ventress' character in the book says annihilation, then it induces whoever hears it to commit suicide. So back to that lighthouse scene when Ventress is down there and she's changing, and then she says annihilation, that she's committing suicide herself, even though she's kind of both parts, her original self Ventress and that new alien part are kind of in the same character. She says annihilation and commits the suicide. But anyway, she seems to be kind of maybe a super ego aspect that Lena has the, thou shalt not. Lena has to get past that view so that she can take control of everything, or of her life, or her mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I guess it's hard to obviously see it that way with just the film to go on, right? But I try to look at her as the externalization. Well, so as soon as you find out that she's dying of cancer, then the landscape becomes a more interesting part of the story. The trees with the bizarre colorful lichens growing, and the parasites that have exploded that person in half, basically, and everything that you see has suddenly become the malignancy inside of this person. And this woman is walking through her own cancer, essentially, trying to not come to terms with it, but trying to come to terms with the fact that this is going to end with her end, right? So there's a very physical sort of manifestation of what's going on inside of her, because cancer is all around them. The film is somehow about cancer. It's a tumor. But I mean, the other aspect of cancer there is that what cancer is. Cancer is the most devious of all diseases, whereas if a virus comes and kills you, it's a thing coming from the outside that kills you. But if you get cancer and you die, you kill yourself in the most perverse and strange way by using the natural processes of nature, cell replication, gone awry. You essentially, your body is committing a mutiny against itself and doesn't even know that that's a bad thing. It just keeps on going and isn't able to stop it, in the same way as you move closer toward the lighthouse. Well, before I mention the lighthouse thing, in general, there are tendencies that we all have towards self-destruction, which is a major theme in the film. Self-destruction is kind of what the whole movie is about. And she mentions at some point we all either smoke or we drink or we do something that's destructive. And maybe we do those things that are destructive until we have a thing that's actually self-destructive, which is actually destroying us, like cancer, right? And it's sort of a reminder that we don't need cancer to destroy ourselves. We have a tendency, whenever the thing is slightly off balance in the psyche deep within us, then all kinds of problems begin to surface, and these problems are primordial problems that probably arise from our ancient ancestors deep within the collective unconscious, that sort of don't fit within the lens of modernity. I mean, right now, reading about that in Jung and how we're disgusted by things that disgust us. We're disgusted to hear about bestiality, and we're disgusted to hear about there's a part about sodomy, and there's a part about incest. These things disturb us deeply, but the question that is interesting, if we're honest with ourselves, is why are they there? They come from the sort of primordial depths of various ancestors that, for some reason, evolutionary or otherwise, engaged in these things for evolutionary reasons. And when they bubble to the surface, they create a conflict and sort of try to fit themselves through the bottleneck of modern consciousness, which is not able to understand them, which is not able to sort of put them in a sort of neat little box that we have in our sort of ethical code, which makes sense because our ethical code can't be infinitely large. But when these things bubble to the surface, if we aren't able to either release them and say, well, that's just a part of myself, then that creates a complex. right? And so the concept of cancer being this thing that will destroy you destroying yourself if you don't understand it, if you can't come to grips with it, is something that I think in the film is manifested both physically and sort of as a suggestion of what's happening throughout the story of her trying to reach the lighthouse and cut through maybe these destructive elements in herself, if that makes sense.